guys so much for gals for doing this. I know we're all busy.
How many do you have right now?
I'm sick and tired of all these things, so I appreciate the time you guys are.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We are just going to wait everybody come till everybody gets in from the waiting room and get started in just 1 minute. All right, Nick, do you want to go ahead and kick things off?
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Nick Sargent, president of SIA. This is going to be an interesting webinar today, and what we're going to experience has been on a lot of people's minds, and so sit tight and enjoy it, and certainly ask the questions as need be. But this is going to be the first in a series of 3 town halls that we're hosting in partnership with SAM Magazine. And this winter, as we all are getting excited and looking forward to it, it's going to look different in regards to resort operations, capacity, travel, and opportunities available to consumers. So we really wanted to take some time and dive into how we can work together to manage consumer expectations on the slopes, as well as help highlight different winter recreation opportunities off the slopes, whether you're a core or a beginner. I think what you're going to experience today is going to be very helpful. Today, we're going to talk with several resorts across the country to learn their current plans for mountain operations this winter. And I know that's on everyone's mind, and everyone wants to know exactly what's going to happen and what changes and what they can expect. So a special thanks to our series moderator, Olivia Rowan, publisher of SAM Magazine. She's the perfect person to help guide this series of conversations. So to get rolling here, let me introduce the panelists. But before I do that, I just wanted to remind everyone that today's discussion is called Resort Operations, an update on the 2021 winter season. So with that, I'm pleased to welcome today's panelists: Dennis Eshbaugh, President and GM of Holiday Valley Resort, New York; Dustin Lyman, President and General Manager, Copper Mountain Resort; Rob Perlman, President and Chief Operating Officer, Steamboat Ski and Resort Corporation; Jeremy Rice, Vice President of Resort Operations at Mountain Hood Meadows and Copper Spur Mountain Resort; and lastly, Carolyn Stimpson, COO and President, Mountainside Ski and Ride, Wachusett Mountain Ski Area. The town hall is going to be a conversation with the panelists. We encourage that you submit questions using the Q&A tool at the bottom of the screen. We'll try to answer all that we can get to during this time that we have. If not, we will get answers to you in a timely manner. So at this point, enough of me, and let's get right into it. So that's Olivia. Why don't you take us away?
Great, thanks so much, Nick, and thanks SIA for creating this platform for us to share across the our side, the operator side, and your side. And I think it's important this community coming together and sharing what we're up to. So, resorts are deep into planning for this most unusual year of operation, and many are able to draw on those running summer ops. So there were big wins for sure this summer with record traffic to many of the activities such as mountain biking and zip tours. But certainly some huge challenges: group sales, lodging, F&B, and in those areas, being off up to 70 or more %. But with the wins of having record-breaking August and July for some of those other activities that they offered. So we certainly learned a lot from our summer operations and creating the operating plans for those that we can carry forward. We certainly saw a lot more cooperation and connection these past few months with all the key stakeholders. Resorts have formed new and deeper relationships with their local Board of Health, their Chamber of Commerce, and certainly with each other. The sharing across resorts, even within competitive markets, has been a huge silver lining. And the main goal, I think, for everybody is just communication, clarity, cooperation, and building trust with the staff, the guests, the community. And this is a big reason that we're doing this town hall with SIA, is a chance for us to share what we're doing so that we can all not just survive, but thrive the unusual times ahead. And so with that, let's get started. We have our 5 resort operators on the panel today that Nick just introduced. We chose them, from a large and small, independent, part of a resort group, diverse geographic range, and some differences in their operating plans. So let's kick things off with Rob Perlman, President and CEO of Steamboat Colorado. Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining. So you're a large destination resort, part of the Alterra Group, Icon Pass. But in our conversation we had, you shared some really interesting things about community. It's obviously a big piece of the draw of Steamboat is, this community that you have. But you said the makeup changed a little bit this summer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thanks, Olivia, and thanks, Nick and SIA for putting this together. Glad to be here with the other panelists and talk about resort operations. And as Nick said, uncharted territory, right? I mean, we're all going into, and I've talked to, my predecessors and veterans of the industry that are now retired, and, they got lucky they retired when they did, because they never faced anything like this, and nobody has. So obviously, as you talked about, had a good opportunity to learn some things this summer in preparation for this winter in terms of running some of our activities, our gondola, dealing with staff and our guests. So a good experience there. At the same time, just in our community, the dynamic, the mix of visitors was different than we'd previously seen. Obviously, a lot of folks got out and about. A lot of folks were renting RVs and traveling via car. But what we really saw was a giant uptick in the second homeowners. Those people that had a condo here or had a second home here that traditionally used it for 1 or 2 weeks out of the winter and maybe a week or 2 out of the summer, they spent a month or 2 months or the entire summer here in their second home. So town and the community felt incredibly busy, and it was, but it was just a different mix of who those visitors were. And a lot of those folks were second homeowners that just chose to spend their entire summer here in the Steamboat area because they wanted to get away from the urban environments in Dallas or Chicago or New York or, other places. So we really saw an uptick in the second homeowners' use of their properties, which was unique for us and really record-breaking for us in terms of the amount of use they had here.
So, and because of this increase in your community population and new voices, perhaps adding to, looking at what you're doing, communication was obviously key. And you said that recently you had a first meeting of something called the Steamboat Ready, which gathered stakeholders, community, chamber, shops, lodging, city councilors. Tell us a little bit about that Steamboat Ready and how that's been helpful preparing.
Yeah, I mean, it really started back in mid-March when we, made the decision to, and even before we closed our resort, we were in constant communication with our county and the city officials and the Chamber of Commerce and leading industries like the retail group or the food and beverage group, and just had those conversations, and things were evolving very quickly. So we were on the phone at least once a week, if not more, talking about what we were seeing, what we were hearing, what we were thinking. That continued on through the summer. And as we got into the summer, realized that this group, needed to be in lockstep, as we call it, with each other as we roll into the winter season. I mean, we did well as a community this summer, and you talked about that earlier. But things are going to get even more intense rolling into this winter. And we got together as a group with some of these leaders from the various industries through kind of the leadership of the chamber, which we're all very involved with, and created this Steamboat Ready, which is we want to put ourselves in the best position to open for the winter season with the resort, with the city, with the county, with the retail industry, with the restaurant, with the lodging community. And we created a program called Steamboat Ready. And that was, put out some videos, put out some guidelines that says we're all going to, commit to these, what we call the 5 commitments to containment, to really try to minimize and slow down the spread of the virus in our community. So we all have worked together and launched what we called Steamboat Ready through the chamber, and again, put out some videos helping not only the businesses that are a part of the chamber and the community, but really kind of setting the tone for our guests and what they can expect when they come here this winter. And as I said, that's going to be here before we know it. I think it's 51 days away from where we are today. So that's 6 weeks from Saturday, and holy cow, it's coming quick. So.
And did you just explain it all, or was there a slide to go with this, or no?
Well, I'd be more than happy to share my screen, which is, there's a website, and the website is called Steamboat Ready, and it's on our Chamber of Commerce website, and it's just, we're working together really to, am I sharing?
Yep.
There we go. We're working together, and we always have worked together, obviously, in our local mountain community. Steamboat is incredibly collaborative in everything we do to support the Olympians that train here, to support each other. I put out a letter to our guests and said, we're all in this boat together. So, we believe in that philosophy and that approach, and through the chamber, we put together the Steamboat Ready, and there's a video here, which is features our county commissioner and features a city council president and some other key players in the community. And it really provides some really good info to businesses as well as our guests. And then through the Steamboat Ready program, we're also doing these webinars. So we have these scheduled webinars. I did the first one about a week or so ago. The next one coming up here is for the restaurant industry, and they'll take the lead for the webinar, and then we'll get updates from the other businesses as a part of that webinar. And then there's a retail one, there's a lodging one,
cool,
and then kind of a season update. So
nice.
It's really the community coming together to kind of get all aligned so that there are no surprises when it comes to the city, the county, the local health officials, and all the key industries we have throughout our community.
And that will
we
help
found
you
it to be
through.
very effective.
That will help you through the winter. You'll use that as a way to quickly communicate with all the stakeholders.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Let's switch gears just a little bit. Just on your operational stuff, you're doing some interesting things with your. We're all hearing about the added fire pits and expanded outdoor seating, which I think you said you're going to do. But you're getting into you already have the snow beast, but you're doing something new with a pizza delivery that I thought was kind of cool. What you're doing? What?
Yeah, last year we rolled out what we called the Taco Beast, and that was a converted a pre-Noth Beast snowcat that we converted to basically a mobile food truck that we provided tacos and cervezas and had that around the mountain, and it proved to be very popular. Not only popular in terms of the business, but popular in terms of the media. I think we spent, I don't know, less than $100,000 on that resort improvement. And at the same time, we spent millions of dollars on some of our other stuff, but we got the most pickup out of the Taco Beast. So our food and beverage team got creative and said, hey, we already have the Taco Beast out there. Why not add to that and come up with what we're calling the Pizza Ranger? So everybody has the Rangers, the four-wheelers that we utilize in the summer, and then we put the quad tracks on them in the winter, and we're putting a hot box onto the back of one of our Rangers that will deliver pizzas around the mountain to various locations that folks can call up and say, I'd like a pepperoni pizza. And we'll ask them, do you want that delivered to this location or this location or this location? It's at 11:30, 12:30, and 1:30, and you can pick your choice of where you want this pizza delivered, and we will roll the Pizza Ranger to you. So
Nice.
that's our latest invention of how we're going to deal with and get creative with the current situation. So
I like that. I think there's going to be a lot of creative F&B and retail. There's a couple operators we'll talk to who are recognizing there's going to be a lot of need for pop-up retail to be able to address the customer not being able to stay warm inside, and they're going to need more products. So I think these are.
We're all dealing with those capacity restrictions in our on-mountain lodges. So the Pizza Ranger is a great way to kind of have another outlet. As you mentioned, we're going to do chairs and fire pits and other places around the mountain so that not everybody's going to our on-mountain lodges. And as everybody knows, in a normal year, those are at capacity anyways. So when we reduce that capacity, it's going to put more pressure on us to kind of spread those folks out. So.
Great. Well, thanks, Rob. We're going to come back to you, but we're going to move to Dustin and get a few more details from another operator. So Dustin Lyman, President and GM of Copper Mountain Resort in Colorado. You had robust summer operations, and it probably helped inform some of your plans for the winter. Can you tell us a little bit about what you learned from your summer ops that are helping you with your planning for the winter?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. We just closed summer operations this week, and we had a record-setting summer for most, well, really for all of our activities. Our golf course was 100% booked every tee time with extended hours at higher rates, and it was just an incredible amount of demand for outdoor activities. Mountain biking, we were lucky. We built 2 new trails last summer, and almost as if we were anticipating high demand, because we were probably 4 times the normal traffic on mountain for us. And it just was pretty incredible how much traffic we got from the Denver Front Range. And obviously people just, whether it was official guidance or not, people intuitively felt like it was safer outside. And we certainly experienced that. It was great. It was fun to see people having fun, family, friends in our village, walking around, and, basically converted all of our restaurant and dining space to outdoor patio dining. We also moved a lot of our indoor retail out onto the sidewalks and the plaza area, and enabled people to do a lot of what they would normally experience, except do a lot of those activities outside. And it did, it's going to be different in the winter, but we are doing our best to enable that same type of participation for the next winter season.
So will you you talked a little bit about the pop-up retail, knowing there's just going to be some definite need for grab and go type items. What are your?
Yeah, retail was one of the bigger surprises for us in the summer. We actually were up year over year, summer over summer, with retail sales, which was encouraging. And, a lot of it was outdoor related equipment, things that people need for being on mountain. We expect the same situation for winter, where if people are going to have to spend longer hours outside, less opportunity to come inside and warm up, we do expect people to need more of that basic equipment, hats, mittens, gloves, hand warmers, socks, things of that nature. And so we're going to make it readily available, easy for people to get to, under our awnings and eaves and tents and other situations where we can keep people dry, still allow them to get access to our facilities.
Nice. And capacity is, as Rob mentioned, is definitely a thing that we're all, it's probably the biggest thing right now, is figuring out what we can all do for capacity. It's different, region by region, state by state. We're all under different guidelines. So for you guys, how are you looking at capacity? How are you going to manage capacity? Because I know you have a different way than other resorts that you're going to do it.
Yeah, Copper's a high volume resort. We certainly have, big weekend visitation, big holiday weekends as well. We're also in a county that we share with 4 ski resorts. So Keystone, Breckenridge, A-Basin, and Copper are all in Summit County, Colorado. And similar to what Rob mentioned about collaboration with the county and even with our competitors in this market, we've been working together to ease the burden on not just the resort, where we feel like people can spread out at the ski resort, be it in the village and certainly on the mountains and across, our 20+ chairlifts. We feel like it's a safe environment here at Copper, but we are sensitive to the fact that we increase the population significantly in Summit County when we're all operating at full capacity. So we have put in place some measures that we can use if needed to lower our total capacity at the resort. And the way we're looking at it is a parking limitation, a parking reservation system. So for people on our peak days, the days when we expect to exceed a comfortable carrying capacity, that people would make reservations for a parking spot. And we feel like it's new process for people, and it's going to in the beginning probably be inconvenient for people that are not used to it, but we do feel like people will be able to have confidence before they come up, before they drive up from Denver, before they come from the airport or from any of our other communities, that if they make their reservation, they'll know that when they get here, they're going to have a great on-mountain experience. But it will allow us to toggle down the total capacity of the resort if we need to do so. And so it's new for us. It'll be new for the guests, and we're going to try and make it as easy as possible, but it will be different for everybody.
Right. And you had mentioned, you work a little bit different to Rob, is that in Summit County, you have 4 resorts representing 3 different resort ownership groups. So, getting your stakeholders together, you said that that's happening now, and is there a commitment to working together since you're all close together and dealing with the same community, in communicating with the community, making sure everybody's on the same page? Is that happening now, and a commitment to go forward with that?
Yeah, it is happening. I mean, I'd say maybe a little bit less of a symbiotic relationship than what Rob has in Steamboat, just because we are competitors not used to working together, and we are spread out across a couple different towns, but we all have a similar interest here, which is to preserve the longevity of the season, and we want to make it a safe environment for the guests that visit the resort community, the Summit County overall, our homeowners and employees that live here permanently and work here. It's a priority for all of us. We share that. And so it's been a good collaboration, a good working experience, a bit odd for us to be working so closely together. But I'd say overall, very productive and a good reflection of the industry overall.
Yeah. And when I asked you, silver linings that you could reflect back on, you offered gratitude that was right back to the very beginning, to the very first days that this blew up, and the way that your company approached that, and defining that as something that's carried forward in your goal to commit to, your staff and to preserving the guest experience. So tell us what you did initially when things shut down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if we look back to March 14th, when the governor of Colorado, shut down ski resorts across the state, was a traumatic and chaotic experience for all of us. And it was unprecedented. It was new. We weren't entirely sure how to cope with a situation like that. And, I am proud of that Copper and our ownership group Powder stepped up to make sure that our employees that were on property, unable to get home to where they live, that we made sure that they had a place to sleep, and that they had 3 meals a day that we were able to serve out of our cafeteria. And that did give people peace of mind, we had a lot of people that stepped up in, at that point in time, what seemed like a very dangerous situation to be interacting and serving food and working together. But we have a brave group of people here, and did not hesitate to step up and do those things. I am proud of that. For our founder and owner, John, and his brother David Cumming, who own Powder Corp, also almost immediately launched a fund called the Play It Forward Fund, where we did help support our local community charities, food banks, other places that are in need, just to help people float for a period of time when there was so much uncertainty. And there still is uncertainty, but certainly in March, April, and May, it was even more dramatic. And so I think the company stepped up, and it did help set that bond in place with our community, and we maintain that, and we're happy about it.
That's awesome. And that's a theme we've all heard is this crisis. A lot of companies are going to be made or broken in how they step up and handle things. So good on you. Thank you. And we're going to turn to Dennis Eshbaugh, President and GM of Holiday Valley. Going to go east now and to upstate New York. Dennis, thanks for joining. Holiday Valley, for those may or may not know, independent ski area, about 500 skier visits. Your markets, Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Cleveland. Do I have those right?
Yes,
Maybe.
and Ontario.
And Ontario. Well, except not this winter.
That's right.
But maybe because all the reports are saying that drive to market is that circle now is out 600 miles. It's getting much broader. So there might be 2 markets for you. So Dennis, you said that the biggest lesson for you and your team that you have learned is being nimble, adaptable, and sometimes letting go of the past. So tell us a little bit about that as your lesson learned from this summer.
Well, thank you, Olivia. And I think probably like most of us, we were really good at what we were good at. And then all of a sudden the rules changed. We're arguably the epicenter of this thing in terms of New York State. We led the country for a long time in COVID cases. Thankfully, California, Texas, and Florida have surpassed us there, but we still lead the country in total fatalities by a significant margin. So, New York was early into this, and although most of this was centered around the New York City area, clearly we were attached at the hip. The guidelines out of our governor and the state capitol have been significant, really from early on. And arguably, again, they, for the most part, have shown very positive results. Our transition, we went from, basically being dark here from March and April and even most of May. We saw some resurgence with New York State allowing the golf course to open. It's one of the first outdoor forms of recreation that was actually allowed in New York. And although it went through some conversion issues, it responded well. Our experience with summer has been similar really to what's just been discussed. In our managerial projections in April and May, we had mostly doomsday scenarios, virtually none of which have come true. Almost every piece of business, all the outdoor business has increased. Retail has actually been up. The things that have suffered, lodging, and all, of course, large gatherings, conference, social, wedding, etc. That aspect of the business is non-existent. So, what I think we learned was, we had to work hard at sharing information. We had to work hard at training the employees, not only with compliance and creating operating plans to meet the guidelines, but probably more importantly, helping them become role models in how to roll some of these things out so that we set a good example. And and learning to work in bubbles for our protection, our guest protection. And then I think currently maybe the most difficult part of being nimble is avoiding pandemic fatigue. And I'm not sure that we're any farther ahead of that in New York than every other state, but you know, it's been 8 months. I think the governor says we're at day 235 today. That's been a long time. And so it's not just challenging and difficult for those of us, you know, in leadership roles, but it's equally difficult for our employees, and maybe even more difficult for our customers that are coming here to, in fact, escape some of the challenges of the urban settings where they're from.
Yeah, it's both an opportunity to provide that much needed emotional and physical, you know, helpful activity, outdoor activity that will help them emotionally and physically, but as well, they're all coming with baggage. And then your team has emotional and physical, you know, effects from all this. So it's a lot. You mentioned the governor, and you said that right now New York is classified as a low risk outdoor recreation, which is fantastic, but bit of nervousness, you know, heading into the winter if that classification changes. And so how are you getting out ahead of that?
Well, I don't know that we're ahead of it. I think we're ready for it. We have a number of classifications of basically degree of exposure or risk. And what we are expecting to be is the lowest, which would be the low risk outdoor recreation. With that said, some of the directives out of our state capital for these low risk outdoor activities, tourism, et cetera, have been pretty stringent. Skiing is very different. And maybe I'll back up, and things like our outdoor adventure parks and you know, the other aspects, I mean, putting people on mountain coasters or chairlift rides, golf, have all been relatively easy once we endorse doing things differently. You know, a story that I'll share that's similar to some of the things I've heard, we have a pool complex which basically was reduced over 60% by the guidelines, but after a sunny summer, because of the way we changed utilization, we increased revenue in that smallest department in the company almost 40%. I wish it was the largest department in the company today. But you know, moving forward, winter obviously is the greatest concern, and we've got some good internal plans. We work, I think, very effectively with our state association, and we are now in the process of communicating with the governor's office on what the final guideline will be for skiing. And you know, I think the outdoor aspect of skiing is relatively easy to manage. Will it be fun? No. Will it be the same? Absolutely not. We have a lot of mandates already in place relative to mass gatherings, seating, et cetera, in the state. Those will be easy to conform to, even though they're going to screw up everything the way we know it. I think there will be a lot of skiing out of the trunk of your car this year. But the unknown will be ultimately how successful we are or we aren't with the guidelines that come out of Albany. Right. That's an unknown today.
And one last bit here, you had mentioned, and this is again another theme that I heard from this group and the broader operator group, is new customers, new outdoor enthusiasts, you know, diversity, a change in the normal customer base. So was that your experience this summer?
Yes, it's been fascinating, actually. I mean, the Canadian border has been closed. We see low 20 percentile Canadian ski customer, winter customer. Summer, golf is higher, close to 30. And so those people weren't here. You know, you can't cross the border today. Home ownership in the Ellicville community is still in the mid 20 percentile of Canadian owners. Somehow, and in addition to that, Ohio was on a quarantine list for 6 weeks midsummer. So restriction there, we had to have a 2-week quarantine to come in here. And yet, when we look at the numbers and we see the, you know, granted, it wasn't just a resurgence, it was a incredible from Memorial Day forward, right through the end of September. One of the things that we saw, they were actually the biggest influx of new customers were people from the Western New York region, our base customer area, that have never been in our community before or never golfed here, never been here to recreate, to eat, to visit, etc. And it's been a wonderful transformation in our business. Now, hopefully we've earned those customers and made them so they'll be returning customers going forward.
Yeah, that would be a silver lining for sure. Thank you, Dennis. We're going to move to Jeremy Rist, who's the VP of Resort Operations at Mount Hood Meadows and Copper Spur. So, Jeremy, you're an independent ski area, medium-sized resort, 440,000 skier visits, 45 minutes from Hood River, hour and a half from Portland would be your markets. I wanted to talk with you because you made an announcement recently about a comprehensive plan to address capacity and demand, the big challenges that we talk about. And yours involves using historical data from the last 3 years and some dynamic pricing to essentially drive traffic to other times and spread things out so that you can maintain a capacity the entire week. So take us through that because it's interesting, and I think.
Absolutely, Olivia. Thank you for having me, and I can share my screen here and kind of share some of the information that we've been putting together. But essentially, we've been challenged for a few years, quite a few years, as a local drive market, that our peak days are really push our capacity pretty hard. So going into this year, we expect that demand to be even higher than it ever has been, with limited opportunities for outdoor experiences. So we know that managing our peak day volume is going to be super important. And we spent a lot of time kind of looking through our historical data to understand, when are people coming and how many folks can we handle. So, this is kind of looking at our average peak day and on an hourly basis, how many folks are skiing and riding at our resort. So that blue line is kind of what an average peak day looks like. On the left side, starting at 9 a.m., kind of to our close around 9 p.m. on the right side. And you can see that, this portion of the day, kind of from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., that's the day where we have a lot of most of our demand, and if we we're thinking that we can comfortably handle around 3,000 guests at a time skiing and riding. So our initial thought process looking at this data is that we have plenty of capacity on those peak days for everybody that might want to be up here, but we're going to need to get them to shift their pattern of behavior as to when they ski and ride a little bit, because that capacity that we have available is more in the afternoon and evening. So we're starting to look a little bit less at how many visitors can we accommodate in a day and more at how many visitors can we accommodate at one time, and trying to spread that demand out throughout the day. And then, when we look at our visitation by day a week, we see kind of very similar trend, that those Saturdays and Sundays are where we see the number of guests here at one time kind of exceeding what our capacity, what we're comfortable with this season. So that blue line is our visitation by day a week, and the orange line might be our capacity. So you can see that, midweek, non-holiday, we have plenty of availability if we could get our guests to shift their pattern of behavior of when they're skiing and riding a little bit. And I think, we may have more opportunity to do that this year than we ever have before, with folks working from home and kids potentially being out of school. So our strategy to kind of move this demand around a little bit is, one, we need to limit the amount of products that we have out there that folks can use anytime. So tickets that can be purchased and used anytime, or different pass products. We need to limit those. So basically, we reduced our pass products down to mainly just a value pass, which is only good on midweek, and on the peak days, it's good after 2 p.m. So you can use it every day, but you just can't use it during that peak time frame on weekends and holidays. And then for the all access passes we do sell that are good anytime, we're going to focus on accurately predicting how many of those guests are going to come. And we know from kind of our historical data that at any 1 hour period, at the most, we have about 17% of those folks of our all access pass holders here at any one time. So we know kind of on the high end, if we have 100 all access pass holders, we're going to have about 17 of those show up at any one time period. So we can use that, the weather and the amount of the resort we have open to kind of predict how many will show up. And we're also going to limit the total number of passes that we sell so that we know that we aren't going to be overwhelmed just by pass holders being at a resort. And then secondly, we want to use pricing of our day tickets. All our day tickets are going to be specific. They have to be purchased for a specific day and a specific time. And we're going to use that pricing to encourage folks to move to different time periods or different days of the week. And then for those busiest time periods, we're also going to set a maximum number of tickets that are available, for instance, for 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And once those run out, there's no more available to purchase. So a little bit more how we're breaking down the kind of the daily lift ticket sales. We're going to have 3 different ticket lengths, 4 hour, 7 hour, and a to close ticket. And then we'll have 4 different start times, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 2 p.m., and 5 p.m., and 2 different types of access, all mountain or beginner. And when you look at that and the different tiers we have of pricing, we've been doing dynamic pricing for tickets for 3 years now. It's been very successful, but moving to this model creates about 60 different price points. We're also going to require that all our lift tickets, lessons, and rentals are all purchased in advance this year. We're not going to be selling them up at the resort, and that'll really allow us to control the volume through our website. So to kind of give you an idea of what the guests might see, and the display will be much better than this. This is just something I kind of mocked up to show it, but we've got that functionality almost built. Is, you know, a guest might select their filters on the top, their ticket length, what type of access they want, and what their age range is. And once they select those, they'll see a calendar display that shows them, you know, what are the different prices on the different days they're looking at coming, or the different start times. So if someone wanted to come, say at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, it might cost them $129. But if they were flexible to start at 2 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. for that same type of product, they might be able to save $70, for instance. So we're pretty significantly shifting the prices to really give folks an incentive to move to off-peak timeframes. You know, and if 9 a.m. was really important to them starting at the beginning of the day, you know, they could still save perhaps $50 if they could move to a Tuesday instead of a Saturday. So, you know, we're using some hard inventory caps to limit those timeframes, but we're also looking at trying to use pricing to encourage folks to move to the timeframes that are not going to be as busy. And, you know, our guests will be able to decide, is money more scarce for them, or is the flexibility of their schedule more important to them, or is the cost of the ticket more important? So that's a little bit about kind of our overall plan to make sure that we don't have too many guests at a resort all at one time, because we think that overcrowding is one of the biggest risk factors we could have for our team members and guests up there.
When you said you can also spread out because you've got snowshoe and cross-country operation, which you expect quite an increased demand for as well.
Absolutely. We expect to see quite a bit more demand for snowshoeing and cross-country as well. And those are nice because they need perhaps a lot less from the lodge and things like that. Down at our Nordic Center, our plan is to kind of bring our boots out to the folks in their car who are renting, so they can put them on there and try them on, versus having people in our Nordic Center, because it's kind of a small building.
That's great. Well, we will be watching this carefully and seeing how it all works out. I think it's you've given a lot of thought to it, so I appreciate you sharing that, Jeremy.
Yeah, no problem.
So we're going to go over now to Carolyn Stimpson, who's the COO at Wachusett Mountain in Massachusetts. And Wachusett they're right outside Boston. They're my local mountain, 45 minutes, 350,000 skier visits. They are a very high traffic area. They have night skiing, racing, after school market, and tap the Boston market is their main one. So I know you and I have talked, and you've gone back and forth on your operating plans and how you're going to handle season pass. And where have you landed? Where are you? What is it today?
This minute, it's so amazing. Talk about audibles, right? We're on the field. And so yesterday we actually had a really productive meeting. Typically we sell about 17,000 to 20,000 season passes for our 4,125 capacity, and hope that not everybody shows up at the same time. Which they typically don't, which is great. But we just made the plan yesterday to cut our season pass sales in half. So that will really limit the number of passes. We were trying to do reservations. We were trying to get it together like Dustin, but the number of sessions that we have is too complex to be able to have our season pass holders make those reservations. So sorry, we don't have the parking technology you do either. And Dustin, I do have a question. Do you actually charge season pass holders for parking as well?
Let me unmute. We're not charging for reservations right now, although we do have a tier for parking that's our closest to the lifts that is a paid product, so people can opt into that. But just for the standard reservations, it's free.
Gotcha. So that was a big challenge, is because we did have a couple of events where we asked people to make reservations, and of course they didn't show up because they didn't have any skin in the game. So we kind of gave up on the idea of charging the pass holders for making a deposit for parking. So we are now holding capacity to for season pass holders to half the number that we typically sell.
We did have that problem. We had some drive-in movies this summer where people did not show up because there was no cost to it. We are penalizing people for no-shows in the winter.
And we saw that at A base in this past spring where they had 600 people making reservations and 400 showing up to use them. So that was off the table. We did not want to have to deal with the pass holders on the reservations. We are, as Jeremy, selling the tickets online only, as well as our beginner packages, all those things. We're reaching out to our school groups now. We usually do about 10,000 school groups, school kids a week. Our job is to build you guys future skiers. So we're really worried about making sure we have our school kids here. We're doing some homeschooling programs. We're doing pods for people like Olivia that have 8 people in their group, and we'll have ski options for them. We're doing everything we can to fill those afternoon sessions, as Jeremy focused on. That was such helpful stuff. I was screenshotting like crazy, Jeremy, because we have those same peaks and valleys, although we suspect strongly that we're not going to have them this year. But we are pushing people, like we have a U-Pass for our college kids, and now that they're all learning remotely, we're having that U-Pass, which is usually 7 nights, 5 days. We're only having it good after 7 at night. So we'll at least get some action on that late night activity. What else are we?
Are you still doing the 4?
We are doing 4 sessions. So instead of doing the day and the night sessions, so we typically had a half afternoon and a half night sessions, we are selling those sessions separately. So when we shut off those season pass holders, we're going to offer them a session discount for those multi-sessions, so we don't piss them off too bad. We're really trying not. And the other thing we're doing is we're emailing all of our long-term season pass holders to say, hey, we are going to shut off pass sales. We're already 30% ahead of our typical pass sales at this point. So it's amazing. We came out of the meeting, I walked into the retail store, and a woman came in and said, is it true you're shutting off pass sales? I'm like, holy crap, we just got out of the meeting. How did you already know? And they're calling, the word's getting out really fast. So,
and Carolyn, how are you going to do lift lines?
So
you definitely got limited space and a lot
right,
of
but if you are in your pod, so if you're with your group and we're not deciding who's in your group, you come to that lift as a unit, then you can go up the lift. We're masking up in lift in the base area, in transit, all that will be masked. When you
spreading people out in the
yeah,
line.
we are going to have seriously long lift lines, seriously longer. But the other thing is, if you and I are going together and we're not in the same pod, then we'd be two separate singles on one chair.
Okay. And the other really interesting thing, and again, but it's a reoccurring theme, is a ton of summer hikers and new people to your mountain. And so tell us a little bit about that and your thoughts on how that might play out with them showing up this winter.
And you also mentioned, Nick mentioned AT. When we closed March 15th, I've never seen so much uphill traffic, including me. There was crazy, tons of hikers, tons of skiers, constantly rotating through up until actually end of April. But how we're going to deal with what was that?
Well, so you had that story of as an example of
the hikers.
customer.
So our parking lot has been full. We were closed by the state, and we had to actually close our parking lots off so people couldn't come in because we had so many people parking to hike that they said you got to stop opening your parking lot. So we had to put our buses in front of the exit and entrance so that they couldn't come in to hike. They're coming in droves. The parking lot's full, and I literally was standing out front last weekend, and people were asking me, "How do you hike?" So that's how new they are. They've never been out of the house. I swear to God, it's their first time. They're like, daylight and that kind of thing, and they're coming out saying, "How do you hike?" I'm like, pretty much walking just uphill. So yeah, it's a whole new world out there of humans that have not been outside.
You wrapped a little revenue around that, created some guides.
Yeah, we do a guided tour, and what we do is we hike them up, and look at the size of this thing. It's not that big. It's 2,000 vertical, so 2.5 miles. We hike them up. Last weekend it took them 2.5 hours. Our guides were like, "Are you kidding me?" And then the good news is they get to sky ride down. So we sell them a $25 hike up, sky ride down package, and we give them a free polar seltzer at the bottom, so it gets them over to our food court, and we sell them some other product to go with the family made seltzer.
And retail for you, so you said a lot of sales for AT. You're going to be looking at uphill access, I'm sure, snowshoe, and then as well, in season. How are you thinking about maximizing retail? Well,
so we had our Labor Day sale, which we took reservations for, and at that we had we took the entire 36, look at the size of the space lot, it's pretty good size, 36,000 square feet, and it sold out immediately for the 22 reservations an hour, and half of them showed up. So we're staring at ourselves like, so we're not doing reservations for our swap, which is starting this week. We pushed it a week longer. So we're starting our Columbus weekend swap a week early and going through so people have plenty of time in Jeremy's model to be able to come when it's less busy. We're actually selling VIP paid reservations for a private sale. And we're just going to have door watchers letting people in and out. We're also adding menu items. So we're having a takeout menu for our food and beverage. And with that, we'll have, did you want a hand warmer or did you want heated socks with that? We're going to be selling stuff on our food and beverage menu to be delivered with their hamburger.
Right. Well, you've got a lot going on, but I'm sure you're going to figure it all out as you guys always do.
Yeah.
You're nimble and adaptable. So I appreciate that. We have a couple of questions, Maggie. I don't know, can I throw some of these in here?
Absolutely. Do you want me to run through them, or do you got it?
We won't have time for all, but there's one here that for any of you guys on the panel, are skier codes of conduct or mountain codes of conduct being updated to reflect social distancing and masking protocols was one of the questions. So, I know NSAA is doing some stuff from the national organization. Are you guys doing anything individually?
Well, since I'm still unmuted, I'll say we did use the NSAA mask logo throughout our base area for our outdoor operations right now. So typically every weekend through the fall, we have about 10,000 people here riding our sky rides and doing whatever barbecue fest or kids fest, and fests are now a 4-letter word. So if I say what the fest, you know what I mean. But we are doing all those, signs throughout the base area. We're putting it on our website. We actually did a red, green, yellow base area mountain map to put on our website to say, hey, if you're in the parking lot, it's yellow. If you're near anyone, mask up. If you're in the base area, you're red and you're masked up. If you're in the building itself, you're masked up. If you're in the maze, you're masked up. If you're on the hill, you're green, you're not.
Nice.
So it's just really simple. I can post that if you want, but it's pretty straight up.
And who is offering day ticket sales? Is anybody? You are. Do you have?
At this moment.
Are you? There's a
Okay,
question
yeah.
whether you're any penalties planned for winter day ticket reservations that are missed or skipped.
In our case, you're buying them ahead, as is Jeremy. So you'll purchase them ahead, and if you don't show up, oh well.
Yeah.
We usually actually move the reservation to another day if they don't. But you know, who knows? COVID.
Yeah. Ooh, COVID.
Everything's going to be
One-
online for us as well.
One of the concerns we have is for folks that might make a reservation and not show up, we don't want them to come if they're sick. So we want to be careful not to penalize folks too hard for not showing up, because they might come even if they aren't feeling well, which is the opposite of what we want.
Right. That's a good point.
So what are you going to do?
Do you have an answer to that? What? Yeah. I mean, it's definitely you want people to step up and be honest with whether they're feeling any symptoms. Will you do? Is there a refund? You guys going to do refund if they show that they like an incentive or?
Most of our folks are local, so usually we would do like a pass holder value credit. So currently, we have a pretty minimal charge. If you let us know 48 hours in advance, you can get a credit and move your ticket to another day. It's no problem. If you are within that window, there is kind of a charge as part of that. But if someone were to tell us they didn't come because they weren't feeling well, we would probably just waive that charge, is our current thought process.
Okay, great.
Approach to that.
Same approach.
Very similar approach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Maggie, any other questions you want to throw in there? We're getting to the top of the hour now.
Yeah, I know we are. I think if we could get maybe one other quick one, and just because there's been a few about how rentals are being handled, and I know this is a much bigger discussion, but just if anybody's really thought through the rental process and has come up with any great ideas, especially for those who are beginners and not familiar with the whole situation and process.
Well, we should probably go to Carolyn just because they have a massive volume of renters that come through there. So what are you guys doing?
We do a pretty high volume, as you said. All that will be online. I'm feeling really bad for those beginners and renters because they're going to be further down on the pipeline, behind the pass holders, behind the day ticket people. They're sort of like, oh, skiing. So we will be doing everything online for them, which is super simple. When they get here, we're going to have one of the members of the party go in, put their barcode into our rental system. We'll print out the labels. We'll bring boots to them outside on the new deck that we are just building. On the heated walkway, we'll have additional seating for them out there. And we're gonna have blowers and tents and things like that. So we're gonna have everything pretty much serviced outside. We've got rollers for the skis, so we'll take the skis and roll them right outside with their names on them. So everything's gonna be as much outside as possible for rentals.
And I just add one thing we're doing at Steamboat is we're moving our beginner never ever lessons to later during the day so that they're not trying to get into the rental shops and get fitted at the same time everybody else is. So we moved that entire product to 11 o'clock or noon start time that takes pressure off of everybody else. So.
All right. I think we're at the
Nick's
top
back.
of the hour. Nick, did you want to have anything to close with?
I just wanted to thank everyone for this webinar. I think this is such an amazing discussion and topic, and obviously there's a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns. I really appreciate the honesty and just change that's happening for all of you. And just add a few things of we're going to get through this. This is uncharted territory. We've been discussing this for a while. But I think, as Dustin said, while our interests are all the same, we're going to work together to preserve the industry. And that's what we're here to do together. And we're here to make it fun, and we'll all be able to enjoy the winter. So a huge thanks to Olivia, and a huge thanks to our panelists, Dennis, Dustin, Rob, Jeremy, and Carolyn. Thank you so much. And for those of you that were listening, want to share with your friends in the office that weren't able to attend, this is recorded, and you can find it on snowsports.org under the education dropdown. So with that, just a huge thank you. Appreciate it, and looking forward to the next webinar on this topic. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Cheers.